Hello my loyal companions, welcome back to the channel and to another complete rogue guide. Today we're going to be having a little look at Dima. As always, we're going to be looking at his basic kit, going over his weapons, abilities and perks. I'm then going to give you an idea of the upgrade priority so you know what to buy when you're in game. And we're going to finally give you some playstyle tips to play him a little bit more effectively. If you do go on to enjoy the video or learn something new, make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the channel. But for now, let's get into it. So Dima is described as a breacher within game, and this is simply due to the fact that his entire job is to break through an enemy defensive line, get your team on site to plant the bomb, and cause massive damage and disruption. In my opinion, Dima is the best rogue for breaching onto a site. He has so much innate kit that is so good at flushing enemies out of position, and he's really effective within this role. Going on to parts of his kit, then we're going to look at his passive, which is called Burned. This is very simple. Whenever he downs an enemy, they become revealed for a few seconds, which can be useful. It's not the most amazing passive, but it is useful if you're looking to thirst that kill with a grenade. You know exactly where they are so you can prime that grenade properly. What really makes Dima Dima though is his main ability, the Merv launcher, which is a grenade launcher that when it impacts a surface, splits into 3 separate clusters of grenades that deal really good damage and are great at flushing enemies out of positions. The grenade launcher itself has quite a high skill cap to use properly. It's not just this throw it down, it will get a kill every time, although can be really good if you're good with it. You just have to understand the spread pattern of the cluster and the trajectory of where you hit it on the surface. Dima's kit is very good overall and allows him to do a lot of different things. Starting with his first primary weapon, which is the KA-30. This is probably the most versatile assault rifle within the game. It's good up close, it's very good in mid-range, and then at longer range it can still be somewhat competitive. And as you upgrade this into the first tier, you increase the magazine size from a base 30 to then 40. At tier 2, you increase its hipfire accuracy, which is very good for those closer range engagements. And at tier 3, you increase its damage range, which helps with the longer range engagements. This is a great weapon overall, and you can run it every single time with success. His other primary weapon is the Mamba. Now this is a 3-round burst DMR, which has very, very high damage if you're able to connect all 3 shots. It's very good and built for long range, so it is kind of the longer range option compared to the KA-30, which is more of a close range option. As you upgrade the Mamba, the first upgrade increases the magazine size from 30 to 42. The second upgrade reduces the recoil and increases its accuracy overall, and the third upgrade increases the damage range that's even better at range. In terms of which primary weapon is best, they are both great options depending on the situation and your preferred playstyle. The Mamba is very good for those longer range engagements, holding down long lines of sight and doing good poke damage to hopefully lead to a pick or to allow your team to push through an area. Whereas the KA-30 is better as an all-round gun for different situations. The Mamba isn't that good up close compared to other weapons, so it's kind of a risk-reward. Depends how you're feeling on the day, really, whether you want the Mamba or the KA-30. Personally, for me, I stick with the KA-30 most because it is just more versatile for my different playstyles, and when you do hit shots at long range with it, it's perfectly fine, just not as good as the Mamba. It really just depends on the map, on your playstyle, and your personal preference. Going on to his secondary weapons though, he has the standard executioner pistol, which is the most common pistol within the game. Very good sort of handling, very good damage, and can compete at longer ranges with some other mainstream guns. As you upgrade this to tier 1, you increase the magazine size from 12 to 16, and at tier 2, you increase the hipfire accuracy and reduce the recoil. His other secondary weapon is the throwing axe, which is of course the faster throwing melee weapon. This is great because as you upgrade it, you increase the throw speed at tier 1 and the throw damage from 100 to 150 at tier 2. His gadgets are a massive part of his kit, and his first gadget is the EMP grenade. Now, I spoke about this with Dallas, but I'm going to reiterate it. The EMP for me personally is only worth it if there is a trench on the enemy team to deal with that barbed wire. It's the quickest and most effective way to deal with the barbed wire, and only in the cases where there is a trench would I recommend you buying this. If you were to buy it though, the first upgrade at tier 1 will increase the EMP duration, and then the second upgrade will give you a second EMP to use, which I don't think is worth it most of the time. His other gadget, which is your preferred option, is the standard frag grenade. This works really well as kit. Obviously, as a demolitions expert, Dima really excels having more grenades and more firepower to use. As you upgrade this tier 1, you increase the explosive radius, and at tier 2, you increase the damage from 100 to 125. Going then onto his perks, in the 4000 category, he has Shredder Rounds and Berserker. At 6,500, he has Nimble Hands and Bounce Back. And then in the final 10,000 category, he has Replenish and Life Drain. In terms of which perks I think are really good there, the 3 best ones personally are Bounce Back, so you get that quicker health regeneration, and then obviously Replenish and Life Drain as a combo are incredible. You get it down, and not only do you get health back from it, but you also reload your weapon. Both of those pairing makes him very good at snowboarding, and are definitely a good pickup if you're doing really well in your games and you want to increase that lead. The Nimble Hands perk isn't bad, and honestly Berserker and Shredder rounds are meh, but you can pick them up in the right circumstances. Let's go on then to the upgrade priority and how I would recommend upgrading Dima. So you've got it here on page 4, and of course I've given you the high priority, the interchangeables which you can mess around with depending on the different circumstances, and then the low priority of situationals which I wouldn't really recommend getting unless you specifically need it for a particular purpose. And then of course I put the rounds at which you're most likely to buy these in Demolition on the side there for you as well. But let's go over the most noticeables. The first round you want to be picking up either the grenade or the EMP. As I said, the EMP is only if they have a trench on the enemy team, otherwise grab the grenade. It's so useful and really synergizes well with his kit. You then want to pick up your weapon of choice, no matter what that is. You can go for the K30 or the Mamba, that's really personal preference as I described. You then, if you did not get the grenade in the first round because you got the EMP instead, you want to get the grenade at this point. But other than that, that's really the core of Dima, that's all you need, and then you can start getting a bit more flexible with what you buy. Of course, you can buy the axe if you feel comfortable with it, but I would definitely recommend you prioritizing Bounce Back as early as possible. I think this is a really good perk for him. It allows him to get in engagements a lot quicker, and if you do accidentally grenade yourself and you manage to survive, you'll get your health back quicker and you won't be pushed. You then, in theory, want to be upgrading your weapon, particularly with the K30. Getting all 3 upgrades is really good. For the Mamba, you don't need it as much, but it's still good, and I would recommend it eventually. Then, after that point, you want to look at upgrading your frag grenade, because this is really, really good. Getting the upgraded frag can deal a lot more damage and a lot bigger radius. And of course, as a demolitions expert, Dima wants to be having this sort of big explosive radiuses, so I would definitely recommend it. And then finally, if you have the spare money, look at getting Life Drain and Replenish. If you can get those by round 5 and push them into round 6, you're going to be having a great job, although you have to get quite a lot of money to be able to get both of these and all the other upgrades I spoke about. And everything else that's not really mentioned isn't worth buying too much. Nimble Hands if you have the spare money, but honestly, Dima's kit, the core of what you want him to have, and then the good things to have with him are quite expensive, so you don't tend to have a lot of money left over for these different purchases. Let's now go on to some playstyle things with Dima, and I want to first talk about his grenade launcher, his ability, the Merv launcher. This is very hard to hit, and you need to find the right circumstance to use this. You only really want to be using this if you think you're going to hit multiple targets, or if it's a really clutch situation where you need to get the down for your team. Otherwise, you need to slow them down, or you need to stop the momentum the enemy team has. The reason I say that you probably want to hold this is because you can normally just use your frag in the same situation to get that down. They're going to do pretty much the same damage depending on how your cluster hits, so you want to be making sure that you use the grenade as a primary option to flush somebody out, and then the Merv to disrupt an entire enemy team. You also want to make sure you're using the launcher in a close quarter situation. It does not do a great spread if you're in a big open area, so it's great at using it in closer quarters engagements such as the Icarus A site. A big tip I actually have for you is wait for the enemy team to start rezzing someone you've got to pick on, then use your launcher, because you're not only going to thirst it down that you got, but you're also probably going to give down the person who is reviving them if they're not quick enough to get off the revive. Either way, you're getting a confirmed kill from it, so it's definitely worth it. And in terms of your positioning with Dima, he's kind of got a weird balance of should you play up close from front, should you play behind, should you play sort of on the flank. Personally, I wouldn't recommend flanking with him. I don't think he's super useful in the flank position. If you get caught out in a 1v1, your guns aren't built for 1v1s as much as say a Ronin or a Lance or a Shark are. So I would definitely recommend that you focus more on being a sort of frontliner, either on attack or defense, because they both work in the right circumstances. If you're playing a site on retake, so for example, say you're playing something like Skyfell and you're all stacking on the B site, but because A site is so hard to defend by 1 or 2 people, and they plant A, and you decide to all rotate to push A as a group, having a Dima there on defense is really good to play it on retake, and then try and get a pick off with your grenade launcher and use it offensively. Dima, in that sense, can be really good. I personally have a few maps that I play him on defense, Icarus being one of them, Favelas being another one. I've spoken about that in one of my Rogue Spectates videos. But there is a place for Dima on both attack or defense if you can use him in the right playstyle. You just need to think about how much disruption, how much AoE damage you're likely to get off as Dima, and then you can decide whether he's a worthy pick there. Most of the time though, you're looking to play him as this kind of frontline-ish, up in the face of the action, peek around a corner, get that launcher off, peek back around so he doesn't die, and try and get some picks off that way. You're there to deal massive AoE damage to the enemy team and really disrupt them from what their initial plan is. A good Dima can stop a breach from an enemy team or allow a breach himself for your team really easily. For example, Dima on High Castle can really breach the B site, which is normally so hard to attack on. Dima really can open that up if you're able to play around him well. My last tip for you on Dima is to remember that you're actually far more than just your grenade launcher and your ability. Dima's weapons and his kit and his utility and his perks are so good by themselves that you can actually really carry on that rogue even without having the launcher. The launcher is a great thing to have with it to allow some good breaching options to allow him get in positions to then frag out. Especially with Life Drain and Replenish, you can really steamroll teams and you can really like 1v4 and actually have some really good matches with Dima. So I would recommend this to any rogue or any player who wants to pick up a nice rogue. He's kind of hard to learn with that launcher, but in terms of just playstyle, I would definitely recommend him. And he's a very similar gun to Ronin, who I recommend for all new players to try. So there's a nice transition there for you. Okay then guys, that takes us to the end of the video, and if you did enjoy it, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. You can also come follow me on twitch.tv/Radthar Gaming to see live game commentaries, guides, Q&As, tournaments and scrims. All the links you need for that are down in the description below. But for now guys, I hope you have a fantastic day, and remember, be loyal, be brave, be relentless, and I'll catch you in the next video.